Hey everyone, if you can hear us, drop a hello in the chat. Let us know who you are, what company you're working at, where you're from. Good to connect with as many of you as possible. Still can't see this on YouTube, which is the scary thing. Cool, we are live. Jason, how are you? What's going on in your world?
Not too much, man. I have to say though, I woke up to your post about all these talent engineer jobs. Like, it's super exciting that these things we were talking about, 6 months ago, a year ago, are actually like coming to fruition now, man.
Yeah, it's good to know that we're not always just two crazy dudes sat on a live stream saying things. Like sometimes broken clocks right twice a day, right? But no, it's cool. Obviously, the head of talent at AirOps and like one of our community members hiring for a talent engineering role. There's a few other of these roles becoming live, like focusing on like deploying AI at TA teams, but really like how do you level up the people within those recruiting teams, which is really cool, right? So yeah, we love that. I was going to ask you your favorite thing from a newsletter this week, but I think it's Sile's and Metaview's ads, right?
Oh, my goodness. Like, I actually showed my kid one and I was like, I know the guy whose company put this ad out. And they're like, was it a Super Bowl ad? And I was like, I can tell you it is. Like, no, but very, very, very huge shout out, man. I'm loving your ads right now.
Feel like a massive fraud to take the sort of the kudos on it because it was like some level of engagement, like some level of involvement from me, but really it was the team. And I think it's pretty cool sort of spot in Metaview at the moment where as we're growing the team, there's so many things that are happening both in the product, which we'll go through in a second, but also in how we talk to the market through marketing that are like less and less of my involvement, which if you hire correctly is a good thing. If you hire badly, can end up being a very bad thing. But hopefully we've done well on that front so far. So yeah, but I appreciate the kind words.
Love it. Well, let's get into it. We've got a very exciting show. Of course, we're joined by Brandon, who we'll meet shortly, but Chief People and AI Transformation Officer at Zapier, going to be showing us hands-on like how he's using AI in his role, tons of different use cases to get through. So should be a great show. Of course, first we've got Sile with us. We're partnered with Metaview, who are not only supporting this show, but are supporting PromptMates throughout the year, so we can continue to kind of build these shows across the year. So we appreciate you and your support, Sile, and we always love it when you come on because you've shipped 4 or 5 new features in the last few months since you came on before. So yeah, what's new in the world of Metaview?
Yeah, tons. And I'm gonna show a few things. And I would say overall for folks that are tuning in, I'm going to assume some baseline familiarity with Metaview and not go too much into sort of what Metaview is about at the core. If some of this is very new to you, then obviously hit up our website or hit me up on LinkedIn and we can go like from the start with what Metaview is about. But for this audience, I'm going to focus on some of the new things. And I should also say, again, really pumped to be supporting this community and what you, Joe, and Jason are putting out. So yeah, thanks again for doing it. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so I can take you through, as I said, what's new with Metaview. Joe, can you give me a thumbs up that you can see the screen?
Yeah, it looks good. Just zoom or full screen where you can, Sile, but yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, cool. We're not going to stay on this slide for long. So we'll go into what's new with Metaview. I think last time we spoke to your community, Joe, was probably about 3 months ago, and there is a crazy amount that is indeed new. We're going to focus on 2 of our agents. Firstly, new additions to our sourcing agent. So our sourcing agent does exactly what it sounds like. It helps you find profiles, find people on the internet that you should probably speak to about a role you're recruiting for. And then we're going to talk about a new agent that we'll be launching soon, which is our application review agent. And not going to do obviously full deep dive, but enough to get you excited about where the bleeding edge of AI is right now in a sort of a purpose-built recruiting domain, which is Metaview. So I'm gonna jump over to Metaview now, and the first thing we're going to talk about is that our AI sourcing agent can now source from your ATS. So most sourcing that folks do obviously is of net new profiles, like maybe people you've never seen or spoken to before. But the reality is, once you've been recruiting, once your company's of any scale, you have a ton of proprietary data within your systems already. And it makes sense that in a world where you have essentially artificially intelligent employees who never get tired and can look through every part of your database, it makes sense to point them at your database as well. So I'm going to show you how that works now. So I'm in Metaview's AI sourcing agent, and I have a very particular thing that I want to source for, and it's going to include a piece of data that I'm very unlikely to have about like public profile candidates that I've never met before. I'm actually looking for candidates, I'm going to say AEs that have beat quota at 110% in the last period. So most people don't track this on their public profiles, but this is highly likely some information I have about a candidate if I've spoke to them. So what I'm going to do for my sourcing agent is I'm going to tell it, well, don't search the web for these people. Just look within my ATS instance and within my i.e. my conversations with candidates that I've had. But again, this is not going to be based on things that are actually on their public profile, on their resume. This is going to be based on maybe notes that we have in the ATS, or notes that I've added about the candidate, or indeed the conversations I've had with them directly. And that's all I'm going to tell the sourcing agent to do. And now it's going to jump off and run that search for me. So what we're going to do while we're doing this, and I know, Joe, you mentioned to zoom in, so I'll do that now, is I'm just going to show you some of the sort of the trail of thought that the AI has, which I know we've done in the past, and I hope this audience sort of appreciates. But you can see that the agent is already saying, I'm going to search the ATS for these candidates because that's the instructions I've given it, and it's just currently working on its plan. And before I actually go to the ICP, I want to show you something else that it mentioned. It said, this is really cool. It is slightly different every time. So I legitimately think these things are cool every time. As it was figuring out its plan, it actually said to itself, actually, let me think about this more carefully. The user wants AEs who have beaten quota at 110%. This information could be in the interview transcripts. It could be in the scorecard data. It could be in the Metaview summaries of the notes, or it could be in the resumes that we have on file as well. So it's actually reasoning for itself, like, where should I look to find out this information, this very basic information that this very sort of vague actually information that my master has asked me for, where should I look for this? And so it's sort of started to create its plan. Now, I won't go into the details of this because some of the viewers have seen this already, but essentially it's come up with its plan in this document called an ICP. In this case, I'm just going to say looks good. But the main point is, our sourcing agent now understands that it shouldn't just look on the web for talent. It should also look at internal databases for talent, especially when you're asking for information that is unlikely to be available on the public web, but may well be available to you if you've spoken for the candidates you've spoken to in the past. So that's sort of the point number one with the sourcing agent. You can now source from your ATS. Now, I'm going to jump over to the search that was, that was completed. When you've actually got your results back, of course, what you also want to do is start to reach out to these folks. And there's some great tools for outreach for candidates. I'm sure many folks on this have used many of them already. What I want to show you is how we've taken a different approach with our recent launch of sequencing, AI sequencing for outreach as well. So the agent has completed this search that I mentioned around these AEs in our database who we know have exceeded quota by 10%. It's found a few candidates for me. I'm going to select a couple, Ethan and Ava, and I'm going to add them to a sequence. And in this case, give it a second, I'm going to use, even though these are AEs, I actually designed earlier my PMM outreach sequence. I'm going to use that. In fact, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sequence. Add these candidates to the sequence. Now let's do AEs sequence. Now, what's unique about Metaview's approach to sequencing? Like, obviously, this is a very developed product category, but at Metaview, we like to do things a little bit differently. What's really unique about Metaview is you can ask the AI for any variable you want. So let's say I wanted to say in the body of my email, subject being interested. In the body of my outreach, I can, of course, give all the sort of standard variables you'd expect. First name, saw you were smashing it at current company. What you can also do is ask the AI for any type of, to be creative in this outreach. So for example, let's say I want the AI at this point to say, let's say we're hiring for a new AE and think you'd be great. I actually want the AI to be funny. I want to say, make a joke, a career-related joke about AEs and the impact of AI. And so you can completely customize what variables you want the AI to fill in within your sequences. And you can make this as sort of, user specific as you want, or candidate specific as you want. For example, like could be about their current company or whatever it might be. But essentially you have total control over what you want the AI to get creative about within your outreach. You can have no creativity and just have it all completely structured and templated, just like you would with traditional sort of legacy outreach tools. Or you can almost like max creativity of the AI and say, hey, just like go crazy with this within within whatever sort of constraints you desire. Let's do a preview on this case. So again, I don't know what this is going to say because I'm leaving the reasoning to the LLM to decide what a joke about AI and AEs is. Here we go. They say AI is coming for everyone's job, but AEs are safe because no arguments figured out how to expense a client dinner and call it relationship building. So there you go. Like, maybe not the best example, but the point is you can enter instructions to the AI as your variables and get these really sort of customized and vibrant and dynamic outreach as a result of this. So that's sort of like
a question. Does that actually help with deliverability too? Because like as we're getting better at creating content to reach out, I would argue that like the Gmails of the world are getting much better at like filtering like what's coming in. So you could almost do like a syntax thing there too, right?
Yeah, honestly, on that front, it's like yes, it does when you have this, as you pointed out, essentially for folks that aren't super aware, I'm sure everyone is, but when these sort of email brokers realize that there's lots of the same content being sent out, then it increases the likelihood that it'll be marked as spam. So obviously when you have these variables in it, can really help. So yeah, it definitely does make a difference. And the whole way Metaview sourcing agent is designed is it's not really assuming you're going to be sending out like thousands of these. It's sort of, it's designed in mind that there's going to be like 10, 15, 20, like pretty targeted use cases. So we don't really fall foul of the deliverability too much anyway, in just the nature of our product and the nature of how our customers use it. But I still think it's a really, really, really good point. Really what this is designed to do is, obviously the name of the show is PromptMates. Being great at prompting is a really great skill. These LLMs are getting more intelligent every week, it feels like at this point. And so the more areas of your workflow where you can be leaning on the LLM to be smart, the better for you. And obviously what we need to do as a company building these products is make sure that we have this surface area where you can lean on the LLM in a way that's purpose built for recruiting. That's the main thing. That's the main sort of like inspiration for us in how we go about building this. I won't go and build the rest of the sequence because you get the idea, but the main sort of thing that's really cool and different about this is, one, it's connected directly to our sourcing agents, which just makes it super easy. And two, you have this like complete variability and control. You can completely orchestrate the AI and its level of involvement you want it to have in the content that you send out to candidates. Cool. I'm gonna motor through the last couple of things because I want to make sure we obviously spend most of the time on the crux of the episode. One thing I should say that folks will be really interested in who have used the sourcing agent before is one thing that's unique about this more agentic form of sourcing, which is the only product on the market that has this agentic approach, is you'll see it right now. It sometimes takes a bit of time to actually find the candidates because it's truly doing the work far quicker than any human on your team, but it's still doing the work. So right now, this search that I kicked off about 5 minutes ago, it's still going. What you can now do if you are more looking to get a sort of a quick hit is, just like with maybe more legacy sourcing tools, you can also just set filters manually if you want. If you don't want to use an AI agent to scour the internet for profiles, you can literally just add whatever filters you want just to get that raw list back. So that's another thing that the sourcing agent now has access to, is just like, hey, just filter the database, show me who fits, don't apply too much intelligence, just like have this blunt instrument. So you sort of get the best of both worlds with Metaview. How am I doing for time, Joe? I want to be sort of mindful of what you have planned for the episode, and conscious I've gone through a lot already.
Yeah, we're getting close, but we could do another minute or two just to round off.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll give it as a bit of a teaser then. Um, uh, the next thing that we'll be launching in the next couple of weeks, and some customers now have early access to, is what we call application review. So again, with Metaview, as you'd expect, there's a bit of a unique approach to achieving this. It essentially relies on being as agentic as possible with how we use AI for application review. In this case, we've got a few roles that we have open. I'm going to jump into one of our roles, which is let's do our product engineer applicants. And as you can see, I have a list of my applicants ordered by how much they fit against the ICP. Now, for like very eagle-eyed viewers of this, you'll know that when you source candidates, when you work with the sourcing agent, the sourcing agent works off what we call an ideal candidate profile, an ICP. That same ICP is then essentially used by the application review agent to understand what good looks like for an applying candidate as well. So you get these massive benefits by sort of really spending time with our sourcing agent. You're essentially teaching this agent what does good look like for this role. And of course, it makes sense for it to use that same intelligence, that same context when it's looking at your applicants. And so what you end up getting is obviously no decisions are made by the AI, but essentially it will tell you of all of the applicants in your applicant pool, based on this ICP that you've decided either as part of the application review flow or as part of sourcing. This is how everyone fits against this criteria. Sort of gem number 2 on this is you can also totally customize some of the specific ways that aspects of an application you ask the AI to look at. So for example, you'll see here that one of the columns is system scale experience, which is never going to be a sort of like a standard like checkbox on other application review software. But for us, because we have this very agentic approach where you can prompt the AI on exactly what you mean for a particular role. So in this case, in order for the AI to score the candidate on system scale experience, we've told it, say the candidate is strong if they have explicit mentions of high traffic distributed systems. Say it's a good fit if they've worked at companies known for scale. Say they're okay if they've worked on standard web applications, etc., etc. So essentially, I have a customized prompt that I, as the recruiter for this role, have created to help the AI understand how it should consider and understand the experience of each of these applicants, which I sort of tell it once, and then it can apply to all 300 applicants I've had for this role. And it can help me really sort of motor through and understand the quality of my pipeline far more effectively. So yeah, there's lots more on application review, lots more that we've done that's, I think, fairly unique about solving that problem of, whether it's a deluge of real applicants, deluge of fake applicants. There's lots of like cool things there. But that's the next agent that will be hitting your Metaview account soon. So yeah, excited to see how people react to that.
Awesome, dude. Almost too much to even react to.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll bookend it. The last thing you showed, like, very simple, but like I love how it's stack ranked. Like coming from a recruiter who used to do LinkedIn searches where you'd get 500 results that are keyword matched in any order, right? Like you want to see, like, for your very specific requirements, like who are the top few candidates. So super useful. And then I've seen Linda put in the chat, like, on the ability to search for your ATS, like often or historically, like a massive black hole in hiring, right? Like you would, at the point of the role, you'd assess someone and then they just disappear into the ATS. Yeah. So great for hiring teams, but probably great for candidates as well, but they have a chance of being resurfaced.
Which, by the way, Joe, I would say this is a little bit of a sort of a tangential point, but I think there's loads of reasons why this talent engineer role makes sense. We actually have just spun up our forward deployed talent engineer function as well. So if you don't have a talent engineer in your team, but you want to get the most out of AI, our team will help you do that. A lot of that's through Metaview, obviously, but the fact is that the team are trained on many tools. What I would say is the fact that when in a world where the ATS data was essentially a black hole because you'd never look at it again, that's almost one of the reasons that made, in some ways, recruiting less strategic, because it was almost like a hand to mouth type role where, hey, it's a new rec, okay, let's like do this task again. In a world where you actually have, in this case, AI that is making use of all of your historic data, suddenly having high quality historic data becomes really important. And that's exactly what essentially a talent engineer's job is going to be. Is going to be, how do we make sure we have really high quality context for our AI? Because suddenly the sort of the surface area that we can traverse is much larger, and we actually care about all this historic data. So I think one of the things those talent engineers will be responsible for is essentially like data, truly like solving this data quality problem, because it is now much more valuable than it used to be, because we can actually do something with it.
Yeah, I agree. Jason and I were talking about how context engineering is probably going to be the big next trend we'd be placing some bets on, but let's not. We could probably spend the whole episode talking about that. But I think you're on holiday actually, Sai. Are you in Oman? So we'll let you enjoy your holiday.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Trip, obviously working a bunch as well, but appreciate it. And good luck with the episode. Appreciate all the work you guys are doing.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for the support. Catch you soon. Awesome. Very, very cool demo. Lots of, I think this is the thing in the world of AI, right? Like features move so much faster. Like it's a full-time role to keep up with what's new, including tools like Zapier. And we're very, very honored to be joined by Brandon. Do you want to kick off with an intro to yourself, Brandon? Anyone who's not come across your content? You could be on mute.
Look at that, getting ahead of myself. Good to be with you, Joe and Jason. Yes, indeed. I am Brandon Sammut, the Chief People and AI Transformation Officer at Zapier. That title's a mouthful. What it means in practice is that my team and I look after how we do work at Zapier at the intersection of talent and technology. That easy, huh? Not quite that easy, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Zapier itself, folks are probably fairly familiar with. This is an AI orchestration platform that connects all of your tools and existing LLMs together to automate work across all of it without needing engineering skills or IT. So really meant to be a wall-to-wall enabler for workflow design, agent building across an entire organization. And we see that in our own team too. Naturally, the people team at Zapier are power users of not just Zapier, but some of the other things we're going to be looking at today. And in fact, yeah, Joe, interestingly, when we get down to it, one of the things that folks will see today is that they won't see a lot of Zapier as you traditionally have built with it. Wanted to bring some really fresh ways of building agents and getting work done. And so we'll get to that in just a moment.
Awesome. And yeah, one thing I wanted to like tee up a session with, and you know, some cynics may say like, why is the chief people officer the one like getting into the workflows here, showing us like the nitty gritty of how these things work? And I've reshared this quote of yours several times already, but I want to bring it up again, which was, you know, as you said, you're talking about like AI transformation and adoption across an org. And one thing you said that I loved was, as a leader, don't tell your people to use AI, like show them how you're using it. So yeah, I wanted to call that out again, and maybe you have some more kind of thoughts that follow on why that's important.
Well, sure. I'll share one more thought on that topic, and then I'll do exactly what we're talking about. I'll share my screen, and we'll get right into it. I mean, I think this is a success factor for any type of org change. And what a lot of our companies are going through right now is a pretty massive form of org change. Some are further along than others, but it's coming. It's an amazing opportunity, but it's also very disorienting, typically. But it's not the only type of org change that companies have had to navigate over the years, right? Before AI, it might have been the transition from on-prem to cloud for certain organizations. It may have been workforce globalization or then reshoring for other organizations. It might be figuring out what to do with like massive new data privacy regulations that really impacted how organizations work. So not the first type of org change companies have navigated, certainly won't be the last. And one of the ingredients, one of the things that makes the difference between organizations that like seize the moment and the ones that miss it is leadership. And leadership sounds like such an abstract thing, but when you really break it down into components, there's some very practical tactics for leadership through change. And one of them is just modeling for the team what you expect of the team. And so naturally, when it comes to putting AI to good use in the organization, folks need to see their leaders building with AI. including the experimentation, including the I'm trying to figure something out and I'm stuck, right? It's not just the brilliant demo at the end. It's like leaders need to model the method or the journey, not just the outcome at the end. Because one of the things we all need our teams doing, right, isn't, you don't one-shot your way into a brilliant use case when it comes to AI, at least not right now, right? You struggle, you learn from others, you ask sometimes silly questions, and then you get to something brilliant. And that's, I think, what leaders have to model in this moment too.
Yeah, that's so exceptionally well said, Brandon. And one of the things I'll kind of add to that too is like having your team be able to see you do it in a safe internal space. And to your point, letting them see versions 1 through 20, like on LinkedIn and TikTok or wherever it is, we're inundated with these like science projects that aren't really necessarily being used in like the day-to-day real world of an enterprise company like you are. And we get a lot of folks that come to us and almost feel intimidated. Like, I don't know where to start. And that's what I want people to hear is like what you're seeing from content creators is content. What Brandon's going to show us is like stuff that is actually getting done in a real company.
Yeah, you bet. Well, in the spirit of show is greater than tell, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get right into it. A couple of caveats as we get started. I have a variety of windows I'm going to be sharing, and so I'll zoom in as far as I think I reasonably can to make things legible. I'm going to move pretty fast, and I'm going to count on Joe and Jason to mind the chat. I really encourage folks, use that chat to let me know what's giving you energy, what's insightful, if you need me to go faster or slower. I probably won't be able to go too much slower, but it'll definitely be good to know like where you're getting value. And then Jason and Joe, you're welcome to also just interject with questions from the chat as well if there's something that I should unpack a little bit further. We'll keep this pretty engaging, and we will move pretty quickly. But everything we're about to see is not a polished demo. You're going to see my desktop as I'm using AI in my daily workflow, perfect and imperfect, mostly imperfect, but including some ways of using AI that I don't think have gotten a lot of attention so far. It's certainly not in the people in talent space. So with that being said, let's get into it. Excellent. I'm going to move a couple things around so you're not looking at the mirror on mirror situation. There we go. A little bit of that and a little bit of that. Excellent. All right. All right. So yeah, you're talking with the head of HR, and why are we looking at Cursor? Oh, interesting. What's Cursor? Many of you may know Cursor from your engineering teams. Cursor is an integrated developer environment that can be used to as an AI companion for building and improving software. At Zapier, increasingly, we're using Cursor, Claude Code, tools like this to create what we're going to call today a digital twin. This is a fairly holistic AI companion that combines 3 capabilities into basically one pane of glass, one companion or digital twin that you can use to power a lot of daily work in almost any role in the organization. What are the 3 capabilities that are embedded in here? Let's start on the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, you basically see a folder directory. This is knowledge. Part of what makes this digital twin useful is that it has context. We talked about context. We were talking about Metaview earlier. This context layer is essential. Agents, for example, really benefit from speedy, but also somewhat focused context on the job at hand. This folder system is my current attempt at combining knowledge about Zapier, the company, what are our goals, what's our strategy, what's our product all about. It includes context about the work of the people team at Zapier. It includes context on our AI transformation work, which I'm accountable to at Zapier. It also includes, and I'll unpack a folder here, some context about me. So here's a markdown file with a version of my README, which is just a lot about me, my personal values, my leadership principles, and so on. Here are my goals for the first 6 months of this calendar year. There's a little bit more information about the AI transformation part of my job at Zapier. And then I also have a basically set of instructions for my overall digital twin. Talks a little bit about who I am, my job, talks a little bit about where I expect help from my digital twin. And these are really just ground setting pieces of context on which I can do a whole range of work right here on a single screen. So the first of the three capabilities that makes the digital twin work is the context layer. The second ingredient is intelligence. And for intelligence, I'm using a variety of LLMs. One of the neat things about something like Cursor is you can use any number of LLMs, right? Some are fast and cheap and good for certain tasks. Some are slow, methodical, and very expensive and have amazing superpowers for other tasks. It's really useful, I find, to be able to mix and match. And the digital twin can actually, based on what we're trying to do together, throttle up or down and target a model that's just the right fit for the job at hand, which is great for power, but also for cost control. That's the second capability, the intelligence layer. The third capability is connections, right? We don't do our work just in one application. We do it in Google Docs or Microsoft products. We do it in Slack and Microsoft Teams. We do it in Jira and Databricks and HubSpot and Salesforce and you name it. And so the third capability that makes this digital twin work is a series of MCPs. MCPs are model context protocols. They're just really elegant ways of connecting something like this digital twin to a variety of applications and data sets so that they can be called upon and also actioned on, all from this single digital twin. And so here, for example, if I go to Tools and MCPs, you'll see I have four in particular set up right now. The first is Databricks, which can query out to all of Zapier's core data assets, how folks use the product and company performance, financials, and so on. Granola, that's an AI meeting note taker. They have an MCP that they just dropped last week. I record most all of my meetings in Granola, so if I want to query for feedback on how I'm showing up in meetings, if I want to incorporate meeting notes into a broader analysis I'm doing, I can just call that straight from this digital twin. The third one is called Ordinal. That's for social media. That's a great teammate for that. And the fourth one, no surprise, is Zapier. So Zapier has connectors to over 8,000 applications, and using Zapier MCP, I can call upon any of them right from my digital twin. I actually don't even need to go into the core Zapier product to do a lot of this work. So three core capabilities for this notion of a digital twin. The first is context, the second is intelligence, and the third is connectors.
Brandon, just on the context, just a quick question from the chat. Like, did you create all this manually? Did you sit with an LLM to like help you draft these documents? Like, what's the quickest way to get all the context you need to the quality you need here?
It's an excellent question. I used a skill. So a skill, by the way, is actually kind of a concept, not just like a colloquially like calling it a skill. A skill is a protocol developed by Anthropic that's open source and is becoming a standard for these basically very well packaged instruction sets for getting things done with AI. And at Zapier, we have a skill that we created actually with with an LLM to basically have a golden path for setting up these file systems or these context layers. And so now if you can basically just invoke this skill in a place like Cursor or Cloud Code and actually walk you and your team through how to set up the context layer for your work. Some of this also operates at the company level. So I can show you right now, I think this will mature over time in the broader industry, but right now, a lot of company context is literally in a well-maintained Google Drive. And I shortcut to this entire Google Drive in my digital twin. So you can see that company folder up here. That's just that's shortcutted right into my own digital twin. So anything that's updated here in this company folder automatically is available in my digital twin. So that's the way that we're developing the context layer. Also requires, by the way, we have a lot of talent leaders here. It's a great example of role redesign. We have a brilliant knowledge management leader at Zapier named Elise. Well, you better believe her job's changed a lot just over the last couple of months from primarily maintaining and improving things like our intranet to helping us standardize the company-wide context layer so that it can be truly usable by digital twins and by agents. Actually, interesting story about what's possible for the people on people teams these days. The intranet that Zapier uses for a lot of our company knowledge isn't well, it's not very readable by things like our digital twins, and it's not very readable by agents. And that's in part because these agents have especially speedy access to knowledge when it's written in Markdown. And this particular third-party application that we use for our internet doesn't have like an API that converts things to Markdown and so on. Elise here at Zapier, again, a member of our people team, not an engineer, not an IT expert, she wrote an application last week that automatically converts all knowledge on our internet into Markdown in a way that is readable by digital twins, like what we are looking at right now. And that now automatically converts to Markdown any new knowledge posted to our internet from last week forward. And you know, the interesting thing, Joe and Jason, she figured that out in 24 hours. It's just remarkable. And so what I share that story to make the point that, you know, any of the goodness that we're demoing and looking at today, there's a talent transformation story underneath almost all of it, right? Not just new tools, not just use cases, but meaningful shifts to the jobs of a lot of our people on our teams.
And it's not just the development of it in 24 hours as much as it's also like the understanding it was possible and taking a crack at it and doing it, right? I mean, it's like, and I think that's where I'm so thrilled for folks in the people organization is like, we really are unlocking new skills on what feels like almost a weekly basis at this point. It's kind of like something that got said on an earlier PromptMates Live where like, as opposed to just using AI for reduction in resources or making things move faster, we actually now have the ability to think of like, using it for headcount we never would have got. You may not have ever gotten an engineer that could create you something that could turn an intranet into Markdown, but you just got that headcount in Elise now.
That's right. Well, and the other thing that's, you know, remarkable about that, you know, as a people and talent leader at Zapier, I feel really strongly that where people spend the next few years of their career, given how fast AI is maturing, is going to have a lot to do with their career opportunities for many, many years after that. And I feel, honestly, I just feel very accountable for making sure that for Elise and folks on the people team, really everyone at Zapier, that I can look folks in the face and say, Zapier is, gosh, like I can't think of a better place for you to spend the next few years because of how much we're investing in these new ways of working. So with that being said, we've talked a lot about this notion of digital twin in the setup, right? We've talked about the three capabilities, the context layer, the intelligence layer, and really the connectors layer. Now let's talk about what we can do with it. I'll give you several examples to start with. Here's an agent that I set up. It's the first thing I built for my digital twin. I call it my weekly accountability copilot. And what my weekly accountability copilot does, in fact, I won't even tell you, I asked it earlier today and I'll show you what it says. So this is one of the amazing things about using AI, right? Is that if you want to learn about it, the best way to do it is to just ask it questions. And especially if you have the context layer set up, it's pretty incredible what it can teach you. So just for the purposes of our time today, I'd actually just ask it, I'd say, hey, we set up this agent, just describe how it works. And so you can read it right here, right? What does it do? It's a cursor-based agent that tracks your progress against your goals, provides coaching, and delivers a weekly report. It runs entirely in cursor. It tracks 3 goals. What are these 3 goals? How does it know what those are? Well, it knows my goals. Come back to the personal context folder. Those are my goals, right? It's able to read those. It understands what's in these folders. And so I didn't have to point it back to my goals when it was setting up this weekly accountability copilot. You got a little flow chart here of what it does. So every week it's collecting relevant data from Slack, my Google Calendar, my meeting notes, and Coda, which, you know, Coda, Notion, it's like, you know, kind of like a knowledge source project management tools. And then it maps that back to my goals and how I'm working to show up as a leader vis-a-vis my README document, which it also has access to. And then it's basically looking for gaps, right? It's like, Brandon, you say that this is really important. You're being gold on this, but I checked your calendar last week and you spent basically no time on it. You know, scrutinize that. Think about that, right? And then it creates the weekly accountability report in 3 formats. And that's what you see on the right-hand side, which is like really small, make it bigger. One, a local markdown file. So then I have this longitudinal data that it can also coach me on. That could look like, Brandon, for 5 out of the last 6 weeks in your meetings, like you, when someone asks you a question, you're giving like a somewhat obtuse answer. Like find a way to just answer, like lead with the answer to the question, provide 1 or 2 bullets, and then pass it back, right? So the meeting can go on. So longitudinal coaching is really a kind of a superpower of AI coaching. It just doesn't forget stuff, connects the dots in really powerful ways. Also puts the output into a Google Doc, and it sends me a Slack to let me know, that it's run the report every week, and it provides me a synthesis. So here's a example of that synthesis from last week. Just does a stop lighting on core goals. Here are things to pay attention to. Here's a place, on Slack where it looks like someone's waiting for a decision. Maybe you need to escalate it or just pop in and give people some guidance, and so on. So that is Weekly Accountability Coach. Created entirely in Cursor using natural language and connectors, right? So we're using Zapier MCP here to actually get that data from places like Slack, my calendar, and Coda, and then Granola MCP to pull my meeting notes. Let's do another one. So for a lot of people teams, change management is one of the core things that we do with the company. It's really important. The core frameworks for change management are pretty straightforward, but in practice, like staring it out on a sheet of paper is very different than like putting it into practice. If you're reorging a team or acquiring a company or, shipping a brand new product that sales has to, learn about and take to market, like that's all a pretty big deal. We want to be better at this. How can a digital twin help? So last week I did this. So, we talked earlier about the work of Elise on the people team at Zapier and how she now has put all company knowledge from our intranet in Markdown. So here's what I was able to do. What I wanted to do is create a skill. That's one of those, kind of standardized protocols for like, getting something done. I wanted to create a company-wide change management skill that anyone could evoke when they're leading through change, big or small, and just get really practical guidance personalized to exactly what they're trying to do so that they could just get down to it and lead through that change really effectively. Wanted to create a skill. So what we're looking at right now is how that worked. So I said, hey, in the HQ folder, that's the folder where the company intranet knowledge has been converted to Markdown. I said, hey, there are Markdown files of different knowledge sources. Can you find a file on the topic of change management? I know that our source of truth for how we want to do change at Zapier is on our intranet. So I also now know it's in this folder. What happens next? It's looking. It says, hey, the most relevant file looks to be this one. And thankfully, I don't have to click on it. It provides a summary of what's on the page. I can tell right away by looking at these bullets that that's the content I'm looking for. Would you like me to do anything with it? Well, yes, I'd like to create a skill based on this content such that any Zapier employee can deploy it and get strong coaching on how to lead change. I have a different skill I invoked. Story for another day on the name of it. It's called Kevin. Kevin is my review skill, and this slows the LLM down. This has special instructions to apply just like extra rigor to what the LLM is doing on my behalf. So I'm invoking Kevin to create a change management skill for Zapier. In the true agentic fashion, it creates a checklist of how it's going to approach that. It goes to work, it goes to work, it goes to work. It invokes Kevin to scrutinize it and make it better. Scrutinizes it further. It then
Did you have a Kevin in your past that was just extra critical of you, Brandon? Like,
it's Kevin from The Office.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. It scores it to make sure like it's Kevin approved, and then it publishes it. So we have this skill called leading change. And then we're doing this, actually, ironically, all of Zapier will be creating this type of digital twin over the next 4 weeks. That's a big change for the company. So then in this window, I invoked this new skill here. Let me show you the workflow. So here's a document. It's going to be small. You don't really need to read it. Where the working group that wants to help every Zappian make a digital twin was talking about what this would be and how we would do it. That's great. That's not a change management plan, though. So what I did in my digital twin is I said, hey, go find this Google Doc. And using the leading change skill that I just created, that's what we're looking at here, right? / leading change, create a change management plan. And don't add it to any docs yet, just put it here so we can look at it together. And so it finds the file, it invokes the leading change skill that we just created, and it creates this change management plan. And then eventually, if I do have it, put it in a Google Doc. The quality of this output is very high. It is remarkably high. But the most important thing is because this skill can be deployed across the company, anyone can instantly have access to this skill for any type of change management that they're working through in their organization. But this could take a day easily for a skilled practitioner to create. It's exhaustive. It has the messaging. It has a change analysis using the SCARF framework, which is the core change management framework that we use at Zapier. It anticipates blockers. It has a point of view on the communications waterfall. It has a manager briefing kit, which is a standard that we have for change. We also have a tradition called the Rude FAQ, which is questions that folks have but might be too polite to ask. We try to proactively name an answer to those when we're doing change. And because we created the context layer, and because we have these kind of extensible skills, this is now the work in a digital twin of less than 10 minutes. So I'll pause there just to see if anything came up in the chat on this one.
Yeah, I think there was a few questions more on the starting point, but I wanted to show the use cases in case it answers some, like people around, like how do you get the skill created? Like, is this something you need to build from scratch? Can you take open source ones from other folks? And then I think you answered the second part, which is about like, this looks really impactful, but how do you scale this for everyone across the org, not just the minority to have like a digital twin, for example?
Okay, both great questions. We'll answer them in order. There are actually a variety of skills available online. Again, one of Zapier's AI principles is, with AI, you can delegate a bunch of the work, but you can't delegate the accountability. So my recommendation on like borrowing skills from outside your organization is just make sure you read them very carefully, because once you invoke them, it will do whatever the skill says. And if you haven't read it, it may do things that you're not expecting. But yes, like Lenny's from Lenny's podcast, for example, he shipped a library of skills based on things that had come up in interviews that he had done over the last 6 months or so. That's a fairly high quality library that we've actually imported. But yeah, there's Zapier has its own skills library now. I'll show you what that looks like. So you see we have a overall coaching skill that maps to our core coaching framework for the company. We talked about that skill that'll help you set up that file system earlier. That's it. Create team brain. That's the one that steps you through creating your own context layer. For SEO content, there's basically an agent that helps our marketing folks with that. There's a folder full of Lenny skills, like we talked about earlier. One of the fun things about this, though, is you can also, we have a skill in here that helps you find your next best skill. There it is. This is one, I created this one last week. And to the question someone asked earlier, you can simply describe what you are trying to get done and have your digital twin walk you through how to create the skill. Then it will create the skill. You can read it, you can edit it if you need to, and then you can post it wherever your company wants its skills to be available. So this is another example of where it's like, gosh, how do I do that? It's like, just ask, right? And you don't even have to have your digital twin set up. You can ask ChatGPT, you can ask Claude, like you can ask any LLM how to do this, because this protocol is becoming standardized. You can get help in, Gemini or whatever the case may be. And then to the second question around, well, how can you do this across an entire organization? Well, that's actually something Zapier's figuring out right now. You can see from what we've looked at today that we've already started setting the stage for like the company-wide context layer. We clearly already have tools available. Folks have access to things like Cursor or Claude Code to set up their digital twin environment. we naturally have the connectors, right? That's our business, right? Is helping folks automate work and use AI across applications. So we use Zapier MCP extensively. But the rest of it, coming back to the work that a lot of us do, people work, talent work, is human enablement, right? Setting up sessions to get folks, configuring everything we've looked at today can take a few hours. So making sure that folks have the time, the space, and the enablement to do that. But like with a lot of things, like we try to treat this like a product launch. Part of what'll make this work is getting folks their first or second skill that could really supercharge their work lit up immediately. Because what we find, I think what a lot of us have seen over the last couple of years, is when someone gets that like wow moment, the intrinsic motivation spikes, and folks will run through a proverbial brick wall to figure out how to create that next wow moment for themselves with AI.
Awesome. I'm possibly thinking Jason and I could do a separate session if folks are interested in on building skills. We've started to use Claude a lot more extensively, so if that's interesting, let us know. Don't know if there's anything else you wanted to show, Brandon. We can do more questions, but conscious of time.
I think we should do more questions. Just to give you, I can do a walkthrough of other things. If you look on the right-hand pane here, I created a skill that helps me with my LinkedIn content. It knows about my job. It has access to all my prior posts and what have you, and can, just based on what's going on in the world as it relates to AI and AI transformation, recommend a topic. I have a skill called Brandon Voice, which is trained on how I like to write and speak, and I can invoke that skill to take a piece of content and just really make it mine. I still post everything myself. That comes back to AI can automate a bunch of work, but humans are still accountable, but it really does speed up that work for me. So that's just one more example, but let's pause there, and I'll stop sharing my screen, and we should just do a bunch of Q&A at this point.
Jason, anything you want to ask? I'll troll through the chat.
Yeah, go through the chat. I mean, one thing that I have to say too is it's not to be understated what a massive change management moment this is for you inside like Zapier. And I like when you had an FAQ that was like, what happens if I don't do this? Can you elaborate on that? Sort of like, I mean, you're talking about how to enable people and how to train them. Like, how do you deal with the percentage of folks that, don't want to learn new tricks, if you will?
Oh, sure. Well, I start with the responsibility on leadership. Like, it's a lot of like, when I see something like that, I think as leaders, we have choices when we see a behavior, or it could be skepticism or, forms of resistance. We get to either point the finger, which is like, what's wrong with you? Or like, why don't you get it? Or we can point the thumb. This is something that my last CEO really coached our leadership team. I'll never forget. It's like, we have a choice as leaders. We can point the finger or we can point the thumb. And what you default to says a lot about your approach to leadership. And so when I see resistance, skepticisms, worries, and so on, I start with the thumb. What is it about how we're talking about what we're doing, why we're doing it, why it's important, and what's in it for you? Where's the gap? There's got to be a gap, probably several usually at first, right? In how we're telling the story or the support we're bringing forth to help you cross that bridge with the rest of the team. That's just not in place yet, or that you're not experiencing yet. And 9 times out of 10, there's something there that my team and I can influence that makes the difference. We, at this point, really don't experience any meaningful form of resistance at Zapier. Folks know that this stuff is changing fast. They know that understanding how this works is deeply connected to our mission, which is to make automation work for everyone. And AI really helps us deliver on that mission. It's still disorienting though, and it still takes time. So one of the ways that we show up within this from a change management perspective is, naming it a priority is one thing, but then folks have to see their leaders prioritizing it and modeling it too, including the struggle. And 3, we need to make sure that we update, how we run this company. So for example, the next 4 weeks, everyone will be setting up this type of digital twin at Zapier. Well, how's the company going to run differently over the next 4 weeks to make sure we nail that? For example, we're going to be repurposing a couple of our all company weekly hangouts for basically builder time.
Interesting.
And these are subtle but important ways that you basically show the organization that this matters rather than just telling them it's important.
Yeah, and then gosh, man, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood around 6 months ago. you hosted, or your team rather hosted, a talk about how you guys are making AI fluency part of the like evaluation process for candidates, right? So it starts before people even get in the door, right? I mean, you want people that want to do these things, if you will.
That is true. Yeah, we do evaluate all candidates for all jobs now on AI fluency, and we're not expecting perfection, but we do have a reasonably high expectation for AI fluency. But I'll share something in the chat, a link to what we mean by AI fluency for folks to just take away. The point I want to make when folks click into that later is that almost nothing about that AI fluency definition has to do with like the current way of building, because that's going to keep changing really fast. When we're looking at AI fluency and how we hire people in the company, we're looking for more durable mindsets and skills that help folks learn quickly, stay accountable for output, regardless of how much AI is helping, and so on. So, if you look at that link, for example, only one of those 5 concepts has anything to do with like the current builder skills of the day. The other 4 are timeless qualities around kind of, accountability to outcomes, really understanding strategy, like understanding what's worth using AI for in the first place and why, for example. And then how well you take what you're learning and extend it for the benefit of your peers, so that you're not just becoming skillful yourself, but that you're kind of, raising the floor for your broader team.
I love it, man. Thank you.
Awesome. One question, again, this might be a big question considering how much time we have left, is like what use cases are working in the recruiting org? Maybe, I guess, either for yourself and your recruiting or for the wider recruiting org.
Oh my goodness. I'll share one in particular. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to screen share and give you one more. Right here. Okay. All right. This is, I think, the coolest thing that the talent acquisition team at Zapier has built with AI over the last 60 days or so. It's called Candidate Cultivation Agent. And it connects Zapier to our applicant tracking system, to our AI interview co-pilot, to a content hub of the best candidate-facing collateral we have. The best product demos, the best customer testimonials, the best like behind the curtain context on what it's like to work at Zapier. How this agent works with the recruiter or the sourcer is based on everything we know about the candidate, their application, their last email, their last interview, really all of it. It's looking for things that appear to be causing them to lean into the opportunity, but also things that might be causing them to lean away. It could be a concern about time zone, like they're on a different time zone than their team might be on, or maybe the title looks different than what they were expecting in their next job. And then it proactively drafts that next written touch point for the sourcer or recruiter to send to the candidate. Makes it hyper personalized, it's fast, and it has like genuine artifacts embedded in it, links to like real context that makes kind of the proposition of working at Zapier feel that much more real for the candidate. Importantly, the recruiter or the sourcer still reviews every single note that goes out. So again, like human in the loop, we're accountable for the quality of that output, but it really does help our talent team with the level of personalization and just the speed of being able to get back with folks and keep them, engaged in potentially working at Zapier.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Love it. I think we're how are we doing? Yeah, we're right on time. So let's call it there. I'm sure we could have done another hour of all the different use cases you've got, Brandon. We appreciate you coming on. Best place for folks to, I guess, follow your personal journey would be LinkedIn, right? You're posting a lot of kind of content openly there.
We do. We're open sourcing almost everything we're learning, including the stuff that's not working. So yeah, LinkedIn is best.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks everyone for joining. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll send out all the links, etc. Tomorrow. And yeah, we're back in 2 weeks. We've got the Greenhouse CEO, CPO discussing kind of the future of ATS, and Jason will be showing how he's building on top of Greenhouse. So yeah, should be another good show. Thanks everyone for joining.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Brandon.